The world of entertainment includes many actors, musicians, athletes, and celebrities who find their way into the world of weed. The Russ Belville Show catches you up with the latest with Steve Blum and the CelebStoner.com Entertainment Report.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 31 after the hour. Got a lot of stuff to talk to Steve Blum about today. Most recently, I saw a story about the New York Jets. Now, a previous report had Cliff Harris and another one of the players from the Jets getting busted and dismissed from the team, I believe. But now we've got another report of a New York Jet who's been busted for marijuana. Steve, are you there?
I am here.
Hey, what's going on with the Jets, man? Looks like you're all smoking weed out there in New York.
Yeah, I know. Well, this guy, he's a new guy. Mike Goodson got arrested early this morning, pulled over on a highway in New Jersey. The car was stopped for some reason on the left side of the road or on a shoulder. A tow truck saw.
Still there, Steve? Having some difficulty with the connection, I think, here. Yeah, dropped the connection. Okay, you might be having some cell phone difficulties out there, but we'll go on to this story about these New York Jets here. The car's pulled over on the side of the road. The tow truck driver sees it just sitting there. And, this reminds me of a story that we covered just a little while ago when there was a car that was just parked right there in the middle of the road and, trying to understand why the guys were just sitting there. So, Steve, did we get you back there?
Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Call me on my landline next time. Anyway,
okay.
This guy, Mike Goodson, he got arrested last night. Now, he's a new guy on the Jets. It'll be very interesting because the two Jets got arrested a couple of weeks ago, and they were marginal players who were immediately cut by the team. This guy's not a marginal player. I mean, he's sort of borderline marginal, but he was a guy that the Jets paid, just gave a 3-year salary, a 3-year contract to. The Jets are retooling their running backs. They brought him in from Oakland. He's a guy who would play for Carolina for a few years. Not a famous player, but I think the Jets just feel like they needed, some new guys. They brought in a couple of new runners. So I think the question will be with him is, are they going to cut him too? Here's a guy they invested some money in. I doubt they're going to cut him so fast. So it's kind of interesting. Guys who they have less investment in, they cut. Guys who they have an investment in, they'll probably keep around. So marijuana, they cut you when they don't need you.
Yeah.
When they're, when the checks and balances don't work, and so they let you go. So I have a feeling this guy's not going to get cut so fast.
Yeah, we'll have to pay attention on that one. The other area of sports where I've been seeing a lot of stories involving marijuana is mixed martial arts, specifically the UFC. Pat Healy just lost like $130,000 for smoking pot.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually the third guy in the last, say, few months who's had problems with the UFC. Robbie Peralta got suspended recently. Matt Riddle was thrown off of the UFC for his second failed marijuana test. Now, Matt didn't apologize. Peralta did, and so did Healy. Healy's thing is, I made a very poor choice to socially use marijuana. It's such a funny thing. Oh, it's poor choice. Okay, the joint came by and he didn't say no.
Yeah.
It was a poor choice. So now, let them, in his case, he hasn't been suspended by the UFC. He's been suspended by the state of New Jersey Athletic Board, and they docked him $130,000 from the victory that he had. So the victory he had after he failed the test, which was back in March in Newark, so it happened in New Jersey. They stripped him of that, made it a no contest. Then he had $130,000 worth of bonuses that he goes with winning. He was stripped of that. But the UFC has not ruled on him yet. Interestingly, I read an article this morning that they may be changing the amount that right now they're getting people for, say, 15 nanograms, and they may raise it to 50. So they may change it because they realize that too many of these guys are falling into the net, so to speak, and they're losing a lot of good fighters just because of marijuana, which is obviously not a performance enhancing drug, yet it's sort of considered so within the worlds of athletics because it's illegal. So it's an area that might change because the UFC is going through so many of the fighters are getting caught in this.
Yeah, and the World Anti-Doping Agency just raised its limit from 15 nanograms to 150. What do you think about? You mentioned that this first fighter is Healy. It was the New Jersey State Athletic Commission, and a lot of fight sports have to do with state athletic commissions. Nevada is one that I think of, in California. Is this going to be any pressure for them to raise their limits?
I would think so. I think across the board. I'm not that familiar with the UFC, but I would think, if they want to keep these guys out there, they're going to keep losing guys. Now, why so many of the UFC guys are using marijuana is unclear. I mean, obviously, they're boxers, they're fighters. They're beat up, and I couldn't barely find a shot of Pat Healy to post on the website without him bleeding, his face, a mess, and these guys get hurt, and so they need some medical attention after these fights, and I guess marijuana seems to be helping them. I mean, especially Matt Riddle, who has a medical marijuana card in Nevada. So some of these guys really believe in it. Diaz, the fighter, Nick Diaz, he's another guy who has a marijuana card in California. So this has been an ongoing issue within the UFC for a while. I think they have to deal with it.
Yeah, and another big story, and I saw your CelebStoner blog getting shout-outs all across the media on this, was Tommy Chong's announcement that he's cancer-free. Apparently, his own blog right there on CelebStoner.
Yeah, actually, because Tommy blogs for CelebStoner, what Tommy does is, I'll send him a query about something, especially, once he announced he had prostate cancer last year, it was really kind of a big story, to, make sure, see how he's doing it. And also, Tommy made a big point when he announced that he had cancer that he was going to be using a therapy involving hemp or hash oil, the Rick Simpson oil, the Phoenix Tears, kind of controversial, method to recuperate from cancer. But he said that's going to be the main thing. And then he found that it really wasn't working for him. So he kind of mixed it up. He used a bunch of different therapies that he says have worked for him. He calls these high frequency treatment, things like that. He went to Mexico for $25,000. So basically when I read, he had a statement that he had made in some interview that he had cancer. So I wrote him a note saying, can you tell me a little bit more about that? And that's what he wrote back. So when Tommy writes back to me, I turn it into a blog, which is approved by him. And he has a blog spot at CelebStoner. So this was, breaking that story, and it did get picked up all over the place, which to my big surprise, the UK Guardian picked it up, and then it kind of went all over the place. The Hollywood Reporter picked it up, InfoWars and different places, like Blacklisted News, all kinds of conspiracy sites picked it up. So, I'm happy to see that because they're taking something that's an exclusive, that's not just something that we grab off the web and just do it, do our spin on it, but it's actually an exclusive from CelebStoner. So hopefully we'll do more of that. But specifically, we're sticking with this story, and hopefully Tommy is healthy and it doesn't come back.
Yeah, folks, you can read that at CelebStoner.com. Just scroll down to the blogs. You'll find Tommy Chong, I'm Cancer-Free, as well as a memorialization of drug-crazy author Mike Gray. We spoke about him. He'd been on our show 4 or 5 times, and we all miss Mike Gray. Lots of stories here on CelebStoner. I don't even not know which one to even jump into next. What are some of your favorites lately?
Well, that's a tough one. Let me take a quick look at the home page, and
there's the Patrick Dempsey story, up here in Washington is something.
Yeah, the Patrick Dempsey is kind of an interesting story because, the actor Patrick Dempsey, who was on Grey's Anatomy, he was Mr. Dr. McDreamy, he's a handsome guy. He recently took $9 million of his own dollars and bought the Tully's coffee chain in Seattle, which has 47 stores. I don't know if it's just in Seattle, but it's in the Northwest. And, it's kind of a Starbucks. And the chain has not been doing well, and so they needed an influx of money, and he outbid Starbucks and a bunch of other big companies. Here's just an actor, with his own money. I guess he's made a lot of money in his career, took $9 million, put it into this, and now what he was quoted in Bon Appetit, or Bon Appetit, as we like to say, and he's saying that, kind of hint, here's an opportunity, with these stores, to sell a little bit more than coffee. And he goes, you could present it in a beautiful, elegant way, a Michelin-starred coffee shop where you can get marijuana. And he goes, coffee is good for your mind. It's basically a legalized drug. The next step is selling marijuana, of course. So it's kind of a pretty big hint that that's the direction he would like to take his stores in. I don't know if they'll allow that, but, coffee and weed, pretty good combination to me,
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to keep Rob Cantrell out of the place.
I know, he stole his song title.
You know, the other, you've always got great reviews up there on CelebStoner.com as well. I had heard a quote recently about Anthony Bourdain saying everybody smokes after work or something like that. And you've got a review of High on Morocco. What's up with Anthony Bourdain?
Well, Bourdain, is a guy who, most people know Bourdain is is a chef who has his travel adventure foodie show, which was No Reservations for 8 seasons on the Travel Channel, and then he just moved over to CNN. They picked him up, and now it's the new show is renamed Parts Unknown, and he more or less does the same thing. He goes to places that are a little bit rough. Might have some political intrigue, going on, like a place like Colombia, or he's going to be in Libya this week, or in the next show. And then, of course, he goes around and samples the food, and does it sort of down and dirty style. He'll eat at the highest end restaurants, and then he'll eat at the food carts. So his latest episode was he went to Morocco, and fans of Bourdain have always looked for drug references because he likes to pepper in drug references. Because Bourdain's a guy who did it all. He did hard drugs. I had sort of, I think, addiction problems with cocaine, and I'm not sure how hard it went beyond that, but he's pretty much admitted to that. So he's kind of a guy who's not really doing much of that these days, or at least not saying so publicly, because I think his public profile is that he's sober, but he likes to sort of play around with the drug issue because it's something that he's very familiar with. And so he goes to Tangier, and Tangier is sort of where William Burroughs had set up shop for many years, wrote Naked Lunch, and built the whole story of Naked Lunch around around Tangier. And so he goes to Tangier, and he's kind of channeling Burroughs. Here I am, in the place where Burroughs, wrote his greatest work. And so he talks a lot about hash. There's the making of majoun, which is a combination of hash and sweetened nuts and chocolate and different things like that. It's sort of like one of the original edibles and medibles. But he hides behind not being able to do any of this stuff on the show because hint, I'd like to, but I can't. And so there's a little level of disappointment that he's moved over to CNN, but he's still kind of shackled in the same way he was when he was on the Travel Channel. He really has to kind of hide and censor himself. So he couldn't, sit down in a shop there and puff some hash with the locals, even though it sounded like he really wanted to, or he did, but it wasn't on camera. So it's a little disappointment, even though it was a fun show. It's a lot of wink, wink, nod, nod, but I can't really do this because I'm on CNN, which leads me to think that maybe he should have taken his act to premium cable and maybe gone to HBO or Showtime where he really could do what he wants.
Yeah, maybe that's the next step.
But it was a very good show, and people love Bourdain, and every time I post anything on Bourdain, there's a lot of interest. So he's kind of like an underground cult hero.
Absolutely.
He's kind of above ground, but I don't think, in the marijuana world, he's really known, as a marijuana activist, and he's never really spoken about it very directly. It'd be interesting to see what he'd say in an interview. He'd probably be very cynical about a lot of stuff, but he's probably on our side.
Yeah, I would think so. And Steve Blum, the editor of CelebStoner.com, the author of Pot Culture and Reefer Movie Madness. Do we got any new events or books or things you need to get out there for our listeners to know about?
No, not right now. Just sticking by. Staying in New York. We had the marijuana rally here back in a couple of weeks ago, and there's not really that much around here. I mean, we are hyping different events that are upcoming. There's Treating Yourself in Toronto. There's HempCon in LA. There's a Normal Legal seminar coming up in Aspen. There's the Cheryl Miller Memorial Protest in New Jersey or in Trenton. So we're kind of keeping an eye on all those things. We're kind of staying pretty close to home, but most likely I'll be out in Seattle for the Hemp Fest this summer.
All right, we'll see you in Seattle for the Hemp Fest. Steve Blum, CelebStoner.com. Thanks for joining us here for an entertainment report. We appreciate it. And next time we'll call on the landline. That's what we'll do. All right, folks, when we come back, my disappointment with former President Jimmy Carter.